Hey everybody, Steven here, and today just diving deeper into all the news that is coming out about Crafton letting the two founders and CEO of UnknownWorlds go. They haven't, at least from what I initially saw, said too much, and now I'm seeing more and more. I'm having a lot of people point me in different directions to be like, hey, watch this video, look at these articles, and as I've dug deeper into this stuff, there's a lot going on here that initially when I just looked at everything, I was like, man, this is not good news. You have Crafton letting the founders and CEO go. They're the people that obviously created the game that we really love, Subnautica. And with this, it's going to be not the same game potentially with them gone. The big caveat there for me, though, was as long as the original devs stay on board with the game, like, I'm reserving judgment on any of this because they are staying. Once I start seeing some of them jump ship or leave or get fired, that's where I'm like, hey, this is really, really concerning. But with this, we have Charlie Cleveland announcing via Reddit and Twitter that he's going to be suing Crafton, and that this bonus that they had been promised is not only legit, but they were going to be sharing this with the dev team, where a lot of people were saying, hey, you were just going to take the money and run. Meanwhile, initially I didn't really have too much to go off in regards to Crafton speaking out about this whole situation, and I believe either this is from an article or this is just a snippet from their website, but here it says, to our 12 million fellow subnauts, inevitable leadership change driven by project abandonment despite holding 90% of earnout for themselves. So I'm assuming they're taking this as one of the things that's being said in regards to the founders being let go. It says, first and foremost, we sincerely thank you for your continued support, passion, and unwavering dedication to Subnautica. We wish to provide clarity on the recent leadership changes at UnknownWorlds, a creative studio under Crafton. Background of leadership change. Crafton deeply values Subnautica's unique creativity and immersive world building. To provide fans with even better gaming experiences, we acquired UnknownWorlds, fully committed to supporting Subnautica's future success. We collaborated closely with the studio's leadership, who were central to the creation of the original Subnautica, to foster the optimal environment for a successful Subnautica 2. Specifically, in addition to the initial $500 million purchase price, we allocated approximately 90% of the up to $250 million earnout compensation to the three former executives, with the exception that they would demonstrate leadership and active involvement in the development of Subnautica 2. However, regrettably, the former leadership abandoned the responsibilities entrusted to them. Subnautica 2 was originally planned for an early access launch in early 2024, but the timeline has since been significantly delayed. Crafton made multiple requests to Charlie and Max to resume their roles as game director and technical director, respectively, but both declined to do so. In particular, following the failure of Moonbreaker, Crafton asked Charlie to devote himself to the development of Subnautica 2. However, instead of participating in the game development, he chose to focus on a personal film project. And let's pause right here for a second. And let's actually look at his X or Twitter account, because that was my first thought. It's like, okay, so has he been talking about this film project? I didn't even know it was a thing he was working on. Scrolling through this, you see a pinned thing there, but then you see him talking about the lawsuit. You see a couple things here and there about Subnautica kind of sprinkled in, but you really see him talking about this podcast and this production on this film that he's working on that apparently is like a Christmas or holiday type movie. So you end up seeing a bunch of stuff about that. And if you look at the timeline on this, this is when, like, this is fully in development when it comes to Subnautica 2 here, and he's doing this film project. So I don't know how you're doing this film project and like your podcast and all these other things when you're supposed to be making this game, right? You're the founder of the company. You're supposed to be in the middle of trying to get this ready for early access, but the focus is elsewhere. So that to me is a little bit of a sign that something's off. So next I'm going to showcase a clip from a video that Gootook made. Very good video breaking down this information from Crafton, similar to what I'm doing here. He has a lot of good information and just his thoughts on everything that's going on. But this little clip in particular is just a good bit of information in regards to Charlie Cleveland and highlighting his thoughts and kind of where his mindset is during the development of Subnautica 2.
Let's talk about something else. He said that he's not really working then on, well, he said at the release he's working on film, but you could say, okay, but he's working on his film while he's also managing his game. He's a hard worker. He's a multitasker. In his own words, then, how would he describe it? This is on a podcast that I had to look up and listen through all of it. It
was a natural way to do it, but now I'm taking a break from video games and working on a few different films and, kind of starting over. So this is a good way to get my start. And as I learn, I'm going to be sharing all that.
Let's listen to that one more time so you guys are hearing properly, because this is in his own words on his podcast. I'm not making it up. What does he say about his involvement in video games? And for the record, April 3rd, 2025. This is a couple months ago. This is when he is supposed to be on active development of the Subnautica 2 early access. For those of you guys who side with him, for those of you guys who like him, for those of you guys who are Subnautica fans, this is the quote company manager, designer, whatever you want to call it, of the game at the exact moment he is supposed to be working on it. What does he say?
Now I'm taking a break from video games and working on a few different films and, kind of starting over. So this is a good way to get my start.
So that's a really good video and breakdown from Gootook. Go watch that video, like and subscribe to his channel. But in that clip, he's just playing a small snippet of one of Charlie Cleveland's podcast episodes. And as we scrolled through his X or Twitter there, you saw he is very focused on these film projects and this podcast, but it's in the middle of the development of Subnautica 2. And so they don't hit their marks when it comes to early access release. And so that was supposed to be in the beginning of 2024. They don't hit that. It gets pushed, and like a year later, he's doing these podcasts and he's really focused on this movie project or movie projects that he's working on instead of the game. And it's not that you can't multitask, but you can't really be committed to both projects when they're at this type of scale. It's just not going to happen. And so it really seems like what Crafton's saying is like they gave him multiple opportunities to really focus in on the game, and he didn't do that. And so going back to the blog, if you want to call it that, from Krafton here, it says Crafton believes that the absence of core leadership has resulted in repeated confusion in direction and significant delays in the overall project schedule. The current early access version also falls short in terms of content volume, and we're going to talk about that here in a second, because this is also something that has come to light and is true, because a lot of people were like, Charlie Cleveland saying that this is ready for early access, but it's not where it should be, and we have more proof of that now. It says we are deeply disappointed by the former leadership's conduct, and above all, we feel a profound sense of betrayal by their failure to honor the trust placed in them by our fans. Crafton's full support for the dedicated development team. To uphold our commitment to provide you with the best possible gaming experience, we made the difficult yet necessary decision to change the executive leadership. Subnautica 2 has been and continues to be actively developed by a dedicated core team who share genuine passion, accountability, and commitment to the game. This is the team that I'm talking about, where it's like, hey, if these core developers start leaving, getting let go, that's where I'm more concerned at that point, where I wouldn't even say I'm as concerned after seeing all this, because initially I was like, oh man, this is a huge shakeup. And so I started reaching out to people I know on the development team, like, are you guys okay? And as more information has come to light, this for people that are going to be in the corner for Charlie Cleveland, they're just not going to like this regardless. But I think this may actually be good news at this point. If his attention was elsewhere, he wasn't even fully committed to the development of this game. He's working on these film projects. If he's doing that and he's not helping the devs out the way he should be, and he was given multiple opportunities to change and rectify that, and Krafton's telling him, hey, we need you to put your attention back on the game, and he didn't do that, then yeah, he should be let go. For Krafton to come in, say, hey, we're going to give you $500 million, and then you're not going to do your job and focus in on one of the big reasons why they purchased the company, which is the Subnautica at this point franchise, then yeah, dude, you're going to get let go. Now, the other thing in question here is the team, the core team, the devs that are actually working on Subnautica 2, they were going to potentially get part of this $250 million payout that Crafton would be paying to Charlie Cleveland, the other founder and CEO also of UnknownWorlds. So the three of them were going to be splitting that, but he talks about in his tweet there that, hey, we were never going to keep the money just for ourselves. We always share profits with the dev team. And so that being off the table, like, are they still going to be compensated? And that was one of my big questions with all of this. But here they do address that. It says Krafton's commitment to its promises in rewarding employees. Additionally, Krafton has committed to fair and equitable compensation for all remaining UnknownWorlds employees who have continuously and tirelessly contributed to Subnautica 2's development. We believe that the dedication and efforts of this team are at the very heart of Subnautica's ongoing evolution, and we reaffirm our commitment to provide the rewards they were promised. So here they're saying that, yeah, they knew that they were going to be sharing those profits with the dev team, and they're going to still do that. Now, of course, they're not going to talk numbers. If you were to reach out to the devs, be like, hey, they're doing this, like, they're not going to be like, yeah, they're giving me this much money. Nobody's going to do that, right? But here, them saying this, if this wasn't the case, you would probably have devs potentially leaving or being very vocal about the fact that they were promised this, or the notion was there that they would be getting these bonuses or profit sharing or whatever, and they didn't get it. We would see some of that at least going on. We're not seeing any of that here. So I think that they are doing this. Also, why write this out if we're going into this lawsuit with Charlie Cleveland and Crafton, and we're going to see this stuff slowly trickle out to the public through litigation and things like that. At a certain point, if they didn't do this, it's going to be known. So I think they know it would be in their best interest to do that. Also, you don't want disgruntled devs on the game that you want to profit from. You want this thing to be the best it can possibly be. And having a bunch of devs leave because they weren't compensated properly is a sure way to make sure that this game doesn't end up in the right place. It doesn't end up as good as everybody is hoping that this is going to be. And from the stuff that we have seen, like, they are pouring their heart and souls into this game. It looks so good right now. And so again, I do think that this is true, that Crafton is committed to making sure that they are rewarding all of the devs on this game. Says fans will always remain at the center of every decision we make at Crafton. Moving forward, we promise transparent communication. I appreciate that. I hope we do get more of this, because that was one of the things I said early on. I do not want a Halo Infinite incident where all this stuff's going on and they're just really not giving anybody any information on that. So from the outside, it seems like it's just so unstable in regards to development. It makes it hard to be excited about the game. So I hope they continue with this. And it says, and continued efforts to sustainably develop and expand the beloved Subnautica universe. So let's jump over now to leaked images, which Krafton has confirmed apparently that these are legit. These are screenshots of where development is at. So the first one here, Subnautica 2 milestone review in May of 25, final recommendation. So apparently this also feeds into what I've been seeing, in that they were planning to potentially push back the release of early access before their decision to let these three founders, or the two founders and CEO, go. Final recommendation: proposed to launch with an MVP level build that allows players to experience the core loop, survival, gathering, crafting, exploring, etc. at a high level of quality. The current version of Subnautica 2 is expected to deliver a certain level of performance based on its existing fandom, but it is deemed to lack the level of polish and market impact required to drive IP growth and expansion. Essentially meaning, if this doesn't do well when it launches in early access, that it's just overall not going to be good for the game long term. And I agree with that, because if it's lackluster, then people are like, well, this is a waste. Why are we wasting our time even playing early access? I'll be back in a year or so when it's worth it. You want people to be there constantly checking in and playing the game so that they can give that valuable feedback through early access. It says to develop Subnautica 2 into Krafton's global franchise IP, it is recommended to enhance the content volume and level of polish before launching so that it can appeal to a broader market from the EA release stage. So here, summary as is. So this is where you can see the content biomes. Intro, you have the deep start, and then you have the first region. Creatures, 12 creatures, 2 leviathans. Equipment / progression, 20 tools / equipment, 2 adaptation systems, 2 submersibles, and then we have spec, survival, default, the creative mode, and then the single player co-op mode, and then cross progression. And the narrative, you just have the one chapter to be. And I believe what they're saying here is they want to increase overall content by 30% before they launch into early access. So you would get the intro, the first region, and the second region. Because if you just did the intro in the first region, that really feels like Below Zero to me, which didn't launch with a ton of content. And then we would have the, well, it's saying 12 creatures, 2 leviathans, but that one they actually reduce. It's 8 creatures and 2 leviathans. On the outside here, you get little snippets. Like this is saying a total of 6 regions are planned for the development to the 1.0 version. In terms of creatures, to be determined. For the equipment and all this, we have the addition of 5 biomods. We have mining and automation, and then the farming system in terms of what you would get beyond that, to be determined for the 1.0 version. And then here we have the survival, the creative mode, single player, all that co-op. But then they're saying 16 hours of core gameplay, approximately 30 hours of sandbox gameplay, and then the online account integration, to be determined for the 1.0 version. And then instead of just one chapter, you would get chapter 1, 2, and 3, and there are a total of 10 planned for the game. So this is just a lot of information about what we are going to see in the game, which is awesome. But looking at this of as is, looking at this with the as is compared to where they want to get it for the release of early access, this makes sense to me. I'd make the same call. This is the right move. Make sure there is more content in early access. That way more people will want to play it and stick around for it. Because again, if it's super lackluster, then you're just not going to get as much feedback as you want. And if I'm looking at the as is, if they were to launch it like that, the intro in one region in one chapter, it just doesn't feel like enough. If you have this with that 30% increase there, I think that is going to be a really good spot to launch in early access. Looking at the second image here, it says the game's content volume has been scaled down compared to the initial EA spec target, making it necessary to reassess the feasibility of the planned launch. Due to an overall shift in direction during the development period, development efforts appear to have been concentrated on a smaller set of content. As a result, the scope and volume of content have been reduced or modified from the original plan, indicating the need to reassess the release timeline and roadmap. The crazy thing here, and I like this layout, it literally shows 2023, 2024, and 2025. And looking at the content, you see from 2023 to 2025, it got reduced over time, which is crazy. So we go from in terms of the biomes here, you're looking at 4, and then for the Coral Gardens, it says 3 main points of interest, and then it shifts. Then we go to just 3 biomes. And for the Coral Gardens, you have the 4 main points of interest, Sparse Plains, formerly Void Zone, and then we have the Kelp Forest, 3 main points of interest. So you can see that they're starting to fill content into some of these things. But again, it's just reducing the overall scale. By the time we get to 2025, Coral Gardens, 7 main points of interest, and then the Sparse Plains, formerly the Void Zone, and then the key reductions / changes compared to Q2 2023, 2 biomes removed, Deep Start added, and the number of key points of interest in the Coral Garden area increased. So again, we're seeing over 2 years, things got removed. Like there was just less and less plan to be put in early access. So they're cutting stuff over time, which is not a good sign there. And then the characters / progression. So it kind of stays the same for the most part, with just going from 2023 to 2024 here. Like that's just the same. But then we get to 2025, and this is where you can see things are starting to get cut. So we're going from the 2 types of Leviathan down to 1 type of Leviathan, plus 2 in the content / preview phase. And then we had the 20 plus creature / fish. We have the same 2023, 2024, and then it goes to 12 types of creatures. So we're losing 8 essentially with that. And then the character selection, 4 characters with light customization. So we have confirmation of some customization here. And so we go from that though to just character selection. They've removed with light customization. So it seems like that's just gone for 2025. Then we have the 20 types of biomods. And so keep that to 2024. And then it goes from that to 2 types of adaptations / 2 types of gen modifications. And then we have ecosystem restoration system for 2023, 2024. And it goes from that to blight, which I'm assuming is obviously not good for the environment. And we're going to have to potentially clear some of this out. And then we're looking at key reductions / changes. 1 type of Leviathan removed, fewer creatures / biomods, and character customization feature excluded. Underneath that, existing biomods split into 3 separate functions, and the ecosystem restoration system is changed to blight. So overall, you can see there's just a lot of reduction in things over time with this game, which again is not good when you're looking at wanting to launch early access with a good amount of content. Construction / equipment. So tools and equipment, 10 to 20 types, and then it goes from that to 10 plus, and then kind of settles into 14 different types. 3 types of vehicles. We have the Wakemaker, Tadpole, and Trident. I like the fact that we're getting some information more so than just an image, but also hinting at things we may see down the road. But it goes from the 3 types here to 2 types of vehicles, the Wakemaker and Tadpole. And then we kept that, just the Wakemaker, Tadpole. and then 20 plus base building parts / furniture, which feels more reminiscent of the first game and below 0. It keeps that, and then it does go to 56 types of base building parts / furniture, 7 types of pre-order furniture items. I wonder if we're looking at exclusion of items if you don't pre-order, though. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of those things coming to this game, and that was the worry with Crafton acquiring UnknownWorlds. No pay-to-play, no loot boxes. They didn't want cosmetics that you had to pay for or anything like that. And so this may rub some people the wrong way if it is just exclusive to pre-ordering for those furniture items. But then it says, compared to Q2 2023, the number of tools / equipment decreased and the additional vehicle, the Trident, excluded. Increased the number of base building parts / furniture and introduced pre-order exclusive furniture. And then we have the modes / platforms here. So initially it's starting with the survival creative custom, and then it's just going to survival creative. It keeps that. So the custom game mode was removed. I'm assuming with a lot of these things, though, when it's saying it's removed, it's just temporary. This will be in the 1.0. It's just that they're shelving it for right now because they don't have enough time to get it in the game in time for early access. And then we have dedicated server multiplayer, and then it was P2P multiplayer. It keeps that. So it says switch to P2P multiplayer and kid introduced. And then we have crossplay and progression, cloud, it keeps that, but then it adds in the kid, the KID. And then we had PC only early access, but that actually then extended over to the Xbox early access. So we did gain that. And then the narrative here is last. 2 chapters implemented, 13 to 16 hours of gameplay, kept 2 chapters, and then it went to 1 chapter. So we actually lost 1 chapter, which is about 6 hours of content cut. So it says, compared to the original planned EA launch specifications, the current target content volume has been reduced or adjusted across various elements such as biomes, creatures, equipment / progression, and features. Due to a gap between the current state and the content volume assumed during the initial launch planning, it is necessary to reassess the release timeline and roadmap. Again, Crafton has confirmed that these are legit with these screenshots. With this being the case, you're seeing the stuff planned, and this is what they wanted to get in the game, and then over time they're like, it's not going to make it, it's not going to make it. So they're just cutting and cutting and cutting for the most part. And because of that, I think Crafton's right. Like, if we got this game and there's not enough content more reminiscent of below 0, because the expectations are so high for this game, I think most people would just start shredding this game. They would just say, oh, there's not enough here, this is boring, this is bad, and it may get overlooked, and there may be a negative impact on the EA process that we want, which is valuable feedback to the developers because of this. So I think this is the right move. It's not what people want. Could it release? I think it could, but again, I think it would not go as well as it needs to go. So yeah, I do think this was the right move. We can wait just a little bit longer. I am really hoping early 2026 here and not like mid 2026, but at this point, this is frustrating in the sense that it's been in development for a long time, and this, in terms of where they're at in the roadmap, is all they have to show for it. And I don't mean that in a super negative way, but it's like, what's going on in terms of development where they had all this stuff planned and they can't hit those targets. And to me, that has to do with potentially resources, or maybe needing to grow the team even more, although it has grown quite a bit, or again, there's a lack of support. Something is potentially off that is causing this to take longer. And I'm also keeping in mind the fact that they are learning how to use Unreal Engine 5 now because they're switching game engines, which to me initially I was like, that should make things faster, but there's also a learning curve, I'm assuming, with that as well. So there's just kind of a culmination of potentially a lot of different things going on here. I don't know that that's 100% on Charlie, although he should be guiding and helping the team and he's off working on his movies. It seems like more so than helping the team. I wonder what is at play here in regards to this taking much longer, because the dev team has grown a lot. And hopefully with Steve Papoutsis, the new CEO, coming on board, he can see where they need help and give them the help that they need. Because it may be an issue where, again, they do need help in certain areas. And with Charlie, Max, and Ted, they just weren't getting it. And again, with Crafton being like, hey, we need you guys to focus in. Why is this taking so long? And they don't really have anything to show for it in terms of what they had planned and getting this to early access at this specific point and with this certain timeline. Yeah, I could see Crafton being like, hey man, we gave you guys multiple shots and you didn't deliver. Now we're going to put our own person in charge. And again, I hope this is for the best in regards to the game. It just makes the game better. And I think the hard part in all this is the devs are stuck in the middle. Like, they are the kid in the divorce right now, and they want to focus on making the game, but instead they're having to deal with the fallout between Crafton and the founders of UnknownWorlds. But again, in the long run, I really hope that Steve is here to come in to be at the aid of the team and help them with whatever, whether that's resources or hiring on more people, whatever it may be, to get all of these things done in a timely manner and just make the game overall much better. And so with the initial news of Crafton letting the founders go, I was like, oh man. And I reached out to some of the devs that I know, like, are you guys good? And looking on Twitter to see how they're doing as well. And I know there is a certain level of transparency that they can't have. They do have to be mindful of that. And now this going into litigation and looking at like Charlie actually trying to sue Crafton, like, there's a lot that is involved with all of that. And again, the dev team is kind of caught in the middle, and I know that's gotta suck, but at this point I'm sure they really just want to focus in on making the game, because they've been there the whole time working on this thing. And I initially was siding with Charlie because it was just like, you have Crafton, this big company, they're firing the founders. This is not a good sign. This is not a good look. But then you have all this information come out, and it's like, well, if you're not focused on the game, and this is really specific to Charlie, because I haven't seen as much information on Ted and Max here in terms of their involvement, because I know with that they were saying, hey, upper management, the owners, like, we gave you guys multiple shots. But Charlie is the one that you can see just a paper trail of, okay, you were focused on your movie, you're doing a podcast about your movie, you have that quote that we showcased earlier that's not a good quote on your behalf. And so I'm leaning more towards, Crafton being in the right on this one. If you're not there focused on the development of this game that they're paying you to be focused on and to make, if you're not helping the dev team, if you're not of service to them, then yeah, you should probably go. Like, and if you've been given multiple warnings, hey, we've talked to you guys multiple times and you're still not delivering, and we have proof that you're focused on other things, then if I'm investing $500 million into you, right, and I've given you half of that up front and you're not going to hold up your part, then yeah, I'd be like, you need to go. And I know for a lot of people, that's probably not going to be their viewpoint. They're probably going to be on the side of Charlie, Max, and Ted and saying, hey, they're still the founders. This is their company. They built this from the ground up. But again, if they're not focused on the development of this game, then what are you paying them for? If they're not helping the dev team make this game, what are you actually paying them for? Because that's why you pay them this large amount of money. Like, make this next game that everybody loves so much. But again, you're elsewhere. So I want to hear from everybody. I started out, like I said, being on the side of the founders, and I'm shifting my viewpoint now because of this stuff that's coming to light here. And I know more stuff is going to come to light over the next handful of months. And if that does come out, and again, that impacts my thoughts on this whole situation, I will definitely make another video. But at this point, I'm kind of leaning more towards Crafton, because again, they know that the fans really want this game to be great, and they want to deliver on that, obviously, to please the fans. But they bought this company with the notion that, hey, we want to make this game bigger and better, which also means that we're going to earn a profit off of it. They don't want to sink all this money into this, I'm assuming, what's going to become a franchise, and it to fail. You don't invest a bunch of money into something and then like, yeah, it's just going to all go down the drain and we don't really care about that. It's like, no, you want it to be successful. So I want to hear from everybody with this information coming to light. What do you think about Krafton's statement, the stuff that Charlie's been doing, the leaked images of the roadmap for early access, as well as just some of the cool tidbits that we've learned from that roadmap in terms of biome names, looking at vehicle names, and things like that. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. That is going to wrap this video up. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.